Welcome to Off the Court, a show dedicated to making you the best version of yourself as a player and as a person. I'm Coach Jack, CEO and owner of Close the Gate Hoops. If you're trying to take your life and game to the next level, this is the podcast for you. Let's get it.
What up, gatekeepers? Back at you with another episode of Off the Court. Today, we're doing a much different episode compared to what we've done in the past. Right now, I am currently a 5-hour drive, and I've had this idea in my head of recording more quick podcasts so that we can put more content out to all you listeners right now. But if I do it off my phone, it's much more accessible to me than using an expensive microphone, having to sit down, and always having to call Coach Aaron sometimes to record a podcast. So I think this way, it'll be much easier for us to put out more content to you. We're sorry if the quality is a little bit worse, but I think it's going to benefit you guys a lot more with more consistent knowledge as me and Coach Aaron continue to grow, so that we can give to you kids so that you kind of have a head start on even where we are in life right now. But again, I want to reiterate the purpose of this podcast. I really think the mental training industry is something that not many people take seriously enough. And the reason for this is because it's very hard to measure mental improvements, right? So when we're trying to improve in, say, basketball, the skill of shooting, right? It's very easy to see your slow improvement over time in shooting because you can see makes and misses, right? So if I'm putting up 100 threes a day in 3 weeks, you're likely going to see more threes made gradually and slowly throughout that process, right? So it's easy to buy into that type of improvement and work ethic because you can see it and you can measure the results, right? But in terms of mental training, it's much harder to measure it because there's not really any real numbers. So you have to be extremely self-aware of how you think and what you're actually doing to measure this type of mental training improvements, right? And so mental training, in essence, is probably the most important thing in basketball, but it's not bought in by everyone because you can't measure it through real numbers, if that makes sense. But I think the mental training industry is something CTG is going to take very seriously, and its mission is to make sure other people can see the value of it, not only in basketball, but throughout our entire life. And I want everyone to know that basketball is a vehicle for you, meaning it's going to end for us one day or another. It's not about what we achieve through those results. It's all about who we become through that process, right? What we're going to be doing after our life and the process that we learned from our sport that we were playing. And I think it's very important to know the difference between happiness and fulfillment, because this is something that I've learned recently and it took me a full year to learn. And I am so grateful I've learned the difference between these two so early on in my life compared to most people. I shouldn't say most people, the average person. In terms of happiness versus fulfillment, that's why performances do not define us, right? Never, ever, ever tie your performances to your self-worth. And that's exactly what I was doing throughout my entire life, and I didn't even realize it. But when I played bad, I would be completely crushed and in a very dark space mentally. But when I played well, I was almost on a high, right? So I was definitely tying my self-worth to how I performed. But again, it's very important to know you cannot control your performances. There's a difference between control and influential control. Control is actually being able to change the result of something. So if I had control of making shots, I would make the shot go in every time, right? But I don't. I have influential control. There's things you can do to help raise the chances of the shot going in, but that doesn't mean you have full control. So it's important you never tie your self-worth to something you don't have full control over, right? An example of having full control over something is composure, body language, attitude, things of that nature. So we never, ever want to tie our self-worth to things we can't control. That's also why achievements are never, ever something we should chase in terms of the sports world, because again, we don't have full control over that. And achievements are me-oriented and they bring happiness. So achievements do bring happiness, but it's important to know that happiness is very short-term. Okay, it's me-oriented and it's short-term, meaning it'll only last for maybe a few weeks, and if you get really lucky, a month or so. But that's the real difference between happiness and fulfillment, is because fulfillment is long-term and others-oriented. I've had a lot of debate whether I want to go back and play next year or not, or continue to do CTG. And this has been a big part in my deciding factor is happiness versus fulfillment. I could get all the accolades in the world, but that is me oriented, and it's only going to bring me happiness for a very short period of time. Versus CTG, that brings me so much fulfillment to see what Close the Gate can do to influence another life and change habits to make them a better person, to make other people better people. But that's why I just think it's very important to know the difference between happiness and fulfillment. And happiness and fulfillment, knowing the difference between those two, is a great example of just mental training, right? Mental training is a very wide subject that people have a narrow view of. And I think it's really important that we teach the whole world kind of how you can change your mindset and you can change your entire life by just changing your thinking habits. Because everything is just basically everything we see is a summary that, or a story that our brain makes up, right? So having control over our thoughts and being self-aware of our thoughts can really, really change your life for the better. And so I just wanted to test this out. Hopefully we'll see how our editor Eli does with this, see if he likes the idea of me recording more podcasts off my phone. But this way I can help you guys as listeners to get more content out there, and of course to ask me more questions. And any questions that you guys have, the tiniest detail in the world, and we can make a podcast on it. So that's why it's a ton of freedom right now, because this podcast isn't huge compared to others on Apple Podcasts. So you guys can be much more involved than you think you can in this process. Please, if you find any of Off the Court's mental training podcasts to be helpful in any way, please share it with others so that they also can learn from it and improve. That's all CTG's mission is to make people better people, right? Changing the way we think, changing our habits. And we truly believe that CTG can change the world in terms of this aspect of self-education, improvement in chasing the best version of ourselves. So I just wanted to thank you guys too, the listeners. Please share with more people so that they can listen, and stay tuned for the next one. I love you, gatekeepers. Thank you so much for following along with us on this journey, and CTG is going to keep rolling. Peace.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Off the Court. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please don't forget to leave reviews if you haven't yet. This helps us with engagement and helps us rank higher to make an influence on more basketball lives. I also strongly encourage you guys to check out our free ebook download that's 25 pages long, How to Unlock the Mental Side of the Game. I was a player that was constantly grinding and constantly working, and it was really hard for me not to see results from the amount of work I was putting in. But this ebook that I wrote dives exactly into those types of questions. I was completely ignoring the most important part of basketball, which is the mental side of the game. So the 25-page ebook that I wrote is for you guys to give yourselves a leg up on your competition and almost like a secret weapon. I call it the basketball cheat code. Also, check out our website, ctghoops.com. On there, we got tons of programs that you guys can download to make yourselves a better basketball player. We have the CTG Productivity Notebook, helping you guys become addicted to productivity. Of course, in-person training. We are located now in multiple cities. And then we have the CTG blog, free education on becoming your best basketball self. Lastly, follow all our social media pages at CTG Hoops, where we post multiple times a day, trying to make you the best player and person that you can be. All the links for these are down in the description below. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you guys check out all the other episodes of Off the Court, and make sure you're ready for next week's episode. I'm Coach Jack. We out, baby. Peace.